everyone, and welcome to Conversations. I'm MIT Janelle, and today we are talking all about generational values. They are the values that make us unique and different, and they are the values that sometimes bring controversy between us. So we're going to talk about these different generational values on today's show. Are you guys ready?
Yeah.
All right, so listen, here's the thing. We are broken up into different categories. There's the millennials, there's the baby boomers, and there's Generation X. So I'm going to tell you, we're going to start the show by me telling you first and foremost about the age differences between the three generations, and then we're going to get right into the topics. So the millennial generation is 1981 to 1996. That's those of you who are 38 to 23. Wave up, wave up, wave up. All right. Matrix, no, you know. No, we're not going to start the show line. All right, so Generation X is 1965 to 1980. That's 54 to 39 years old, okay? And then the baby boomers are 1946 to 1964. So that means you're between the ages of 73 to 58, all right? All right, so let's talk about these different generational values when it comes to different topics. The first thing I want to talk about is church. Okay, church, the differences in church, how we church, honey, spiritual beliefs, how we go to church, how we think about church, how we conduct ourselves in church. Who wants to start?
Well, I think my generation, what am I? But anywho, I think my generation, I'm generation what?
So you're Generation X.
I'm generation
X. Yeah.
I think Generation X was brought up more in the fear of God and his power, his might, and his authority. And I think that oftentimes the perception from the millennials are that we were hiders of the truth. And we had a conversation earlier, you know, me and some millennials about truth and what is being revealed is shown. And I think in church, I think one thing I do believe that they have over us is that they have a greater freedom. They have a greater freedom in their worship, and they have a greater freedom in their relationship with God. I think that we have, I just feel personally, I can't say what I'm going to speak for myself. I think that I have a greater fear of God than my need to express my freedom in him. And I think my fear makes my worship, not necessarily my worship, but my relationship more reserved. Okay. You know what I'm saying? So that means that I don't expose a lot of things because it don't glorify God. Even though I'm free, he's not being glorified. And so I think that's the difference in what I see in my worship or church, as we say, as being a generational X versus the millennials.
Okay, millennial. Go ahead, Brianna.
I think for a millennial, I think that our dress code is different.
Yeah.
How we attend church is different. I think our involvement in ministry is different. I think, you know, we come, we want a word, and we want to go. Not necessarily, in some cases, may not necessarily be attached. I don't think that speaks for everyone. You do have people that are faithful, and that may be a contradiction what I'm getting ready to say, but you do have young people that are evangelists and ministers. So I think it wouldn't be wise to say that for everyone. You have a group that's committed and faithful, then you may have a group that just wants to come and go. And I also think that that there is a difference in the freedom of their worship. I think that we have more of the mind that I have to be ready for God.
That's good.
And because we think we have to be ready for God, it will prevent those that feel like, wow, if I step in the church gonna blow up. Because I know what I do Monday through Saturday. And because I feel like I'm not ready for God, God's not ready for me. And that causes a hindrance for people to come into the house of the God because they feel like they have to be ready or prepared or all together for God to receive them. And I think the difference, the other generations, God loves me, they can wail and cry. I think the other ones have a fear of, I can't go because I know my lifestyle.
That's it. Okay, now I'm going to go right to Pastor Poole because we've heard from Millennial, Generation X, pre-baby boomer.
I was going to say that I just coined that phrase because I didn't see anything in the other ones, but I would be classified probably as a pre-baby boomer. And for that reason, as a pre-baby boomer, especially in terms of my exposure to the things of the church and the things of God, I can say that it really has been interesting in my life and watching in the lives of others who were accepted Christ around the same time that I did, and of course our lives changed. But also it's been really a remarkable thing to me because I can see so many nice and wonderful strengths in each of the generations. And the one consistent theme throughout those generations to me has been the Word of God says that in any generation, the one who fears God and works righteousness is accepted with him. So even though, and when I was a young person, then the older generation judged us. And they considered us a little wild and loose and unruly and stuff like that. But as we grow in our years as well as in our experience of God and of things, those things change if we're submitted and committed to God, so that we even learn, even from our other friends, how to, because we're saved, not be so happy that we're saved that we're not interested in seeing our other friends accept Christ and grow too. So I think the strand of it is that whatever that generation is, God is still working in the midst of those generations. He's still calling them and drawing them. He knows what our hearts are like, and he knows when we're ready to make that wonderful, marvelous decision to surrender our lives to Christ, because then there's a continued growing process. So it's consistent, even though we all have our little its and oughts, you know.
Yeah, okay. That's true, and you're right. God is working on in all generations, but the differences are just really, they do stand out. I mean, Brianna, you made a good point. I mean, about the fact that the generation comes, it's like, I got to get ready. When I get ready, I'll come to church. Or the fear that you talked about that we have in Generation X. Chantal, Elder Chantal.
So where I came up based on really religion, not really all about. So of course church. Yeah. But we, as Evangelist Shala was saying, we had a fear. If you don't get yourself together, you're going to go to hell. Yeah. So, of course, our generation was like, Lord, I want to get myself together. Now, even though I went to church, you still did what you wanted to do, right? But then you come into church, asking, Lord, I repent, please forgive me. Yeah. And, that's how we were raised and taught. Yep. So I understand also the younger generation is like, I'm going to do what I want to do, and they are not fake and phony. Not saying that we weren't fake and phony, but I think, because we stayed at the altar so long, our grandmothers, had us down there saying, don't move until you start speaking in tongues. And after 2 hours, you just start talking and saying something.
You ain't got it yet.
You ain't got it. So, of course, it's different now, but that's how I was raised, like, you're going to go to hell if you don't get yourself together.
They're still going.
Yeah.
You're still going.
Yeah. It's still that is what it is, but it's different. It's a different foundation of then based on what it is now. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'm from all of generations.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. But no, like when we was, baby boom, when we was coming up. Oh, yes. I still from all the generations. I had to walk every last one of them to get to where I am now. So, but we was doing it at home as well, too, as the fear of the Lord. And, you know what I mean? And even coming to church and stuff, certain things that we do that we couldn't do then because you never know who's watching, you know what I mean? So, but we all do the same as, as far as with the younger generation today, they're watching you. They want to see what you're doing. They look at you, well, if you can do it, then I can do it. You know what I mean? So we have to have ourselves according to, for our standards and stuff.
What about with church attendance, though? The way like as far as, because I'm going to say this, and you tell me, y'all tell me, what you say. Old school baby boomers, it was like, we go to church 5 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning, and we stay all day. Millennials is like, one service, I'm out. Yes or no?
I agree with that. I agree with the comment that you made. That is the perception. I also think as times have changed in society, it changes different values. For instance, social media and broadcasting services is very popular, is well known. So a lot of people's church attendance change because now they can have bedside Baptists.
Good.
Yes, they can.
You know,
They sure can.
They can praise the Lord and cook breakfast. You know, they can praise
Right.
the Lord
Breakfast as they
and
praise
write
the
that-
Lord.
and write that and do that, finish their paper. They can praise the
Yeah.
Lord and do their schoolwork. So I think that those convenience for some, but we have to remember the foundation of the word, forsake not the assembly of the saints. So it sometimes is a convenience, but sometimes it creates a bad pattern that you don't come into the house of God to gather amongst the saints to worship him in his house. And so I think that those options allow people to make different choices.
And I think what I see in all of the generations, because even like when my mother and them was in church, I didn't think that I could live up to their standard of church, their level of holiness, their level of commitment, you know, because they'll tell you, you ain't saved. Look at you. You got on red lipstick and, you know, all of those religious things were brought into play. And when I found myself rebelling, and at my old church, you know, I came from apostolic and you didn't wear pants. And I was like, what that got to do with salvation? Da, 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 da. And the Holy Spirit convicted me. He said, if you're going to stay, you have to stay in obedience. And I think that no matter what the generation is, if you make a commitment to be under a ministry, you have a commitment to make, to be obedient to whatever that house is being taught. So whether you're a millennial, whether you're generational X, if you say you're going to come and worship, if you say you're a part of this church, then no matter what generation that you're in, there is a level of commitment that God is looking for you to be obedient to what you're sitting under. And I think that, like Pastor Poole said, like Brianna said, we have been commissioned to save each other. Is it funny that the generation that you look down on is committed to saving you? And so forth. It's like you turn around to save them, and then they turn around to save the next generation, because that's how wise God is. He won't let us separate ourselves in our opinions, because we believe God. We just don't like the way we do stuff.
Well, let me tell you this. I think now at this age, or within the past, 5 or 10 years, I understand more of God.
Yeah.
Because back then, I wasn't trying to understand them
right,
because
right.
I didn't want to go.
Yeah.
So, you know, when you're younger, you are made to go. You're not asked, do you want to go to church?
No choice.
You're going to go to church. You get dressed and go to church all day. So we'll be in church all day. You need to sing on a choir. Do I have a choice to sing on a choir? So no, you are made to be in the ministry. You're made to sing on a choir. You are made to usher back then. So now it's something that I'm free will. I want to do, you know, based on before I didn't want to do it. I was made to do it, you know.
But in training of generations, I think that sometimes is the disconnect, because most people, in my opinion, teach people church. They don't teach people God, Jesus, Christ, the Holy Ghost. You're saying you got to go to church. So the newer generation is like, I'm just going to church for what?
Give me a reason
You said,
why.
like, because that's not being taught. It's church attendance, being in ministries, different things like that. I don't think that there's a balance in teaching Christ, teaching relationship, teaching prayer, fellowship with God. I feel like it's just, you got to go to church.
Well, I think, though, let me say this. I think that, but even in teaching that, I can't teach you your relationship.
Right.
Because that's your understanding. I could teach you my relationship. I could tell you what it means to me, but that don't mean that's necessarily what it's going to mean to you. Like one thing Elder said, when she got older, now she have a different appreciation for what she was taught and how she was raised, and now she have a different understanding. So now she come because she want to come. And it's true that, you know, sometimes you have to, sometimes we don't always give you understanding. And everybody is looking for an understanding that they're not ready to receive. Because the Bible said when I was a child, your understanding is as a child. So certain things, I think that you grow in relationship to, you grow into understanding to. Some things as my child, they're not going to understand. I'm going to tell you to wash them dishes. Wash them dishes. Why I gotta wash? Because if you don't wash them dishes, a rat and a roach going to come in here. But I don't want the rat and roach to come before you get the understanding. For you to get an understanding, I don't want the rats and roaches to be here then for you to say, oh, I understand why you said wash the dishes. No, you're going to wash the dishes until you get understanding. And some things you learn in understanding.
That's good. All right, okay, so now let me ask this. What's the difference when it comes to marriage and family?
Oh, wow. What you mean?
And let me say this, and I'm going to start with
So what's the, go ahead, I'm sorry.
the difference in generations when it comes to how to when we get married, to how we treat our spouse, to how long we stay married, to the value of marriage, period. Pastor Poole, I'm going to start with you because you are married.
Help us,
Been
Pastor
married a
Poole.
long
Help us,
time.
Pastor Poole.
Teach us.
Not exactly forever, but a long time. But I really, it's been interesting to watch, and this is what you can do when you get to be my age. You can look back and see some patterns and things. But to me, I don't know if I don't want to be general in saying that that's happened across all racial divides, because I don't know all the races and how they did. But I know that in the black culture, we did have a lot of a little bit more stability in terms of people being in a family relationship, and the father and the mother being in there. And so we didn't have quite as many disconnected family relationships. The statistics say that there's a large number of households, especially in the black African American community, where they're manned primarily by females.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's a male in it. It may or may not be the father, it may not be the husband. But that definitely has had an impact. But God still works in the midst of even all of that disconnect to have his purposes realized. So there has been some noticeable changes in the structure of the household that really have affected how well we function as a people.
But marriage itself, divorce rates is still tripling, doubling. It haven't gotten any better.
Do you think we
across the board?
Do you think we got married sooner in the baby boomers versus the millennials, or did we get married later? Did we take it more seriously or not more seriously?
I think this is what I think. I think in Pastor Poole's generation, they took marriage seriously, and they took the foundation of what marriage is, and they took the foundation of what a vow is. And I think the generation from what I was taught from, by seeing my parents, by seeing my aunt and my uncle who have been married for 55 years versus my mom and other people, I don't see that. So when I look at that in my life, unfortunately, and I'm going to say it's unfortunate because now I feel as though, not saying that I don't need anybody, but I know how to take care of myself based on what I saw and how I grew up. So I think back then in that era of Pastor Poole and them, they were like husband and wife, because we have to have a family, and our children has to see that we are a family. No matter if we get along or don't get along, there has to be a covering shown in our household. Versus now, it's like, you know, I can do the same thing that you do. I don't need nobody here to do it myself, you know. And we have women who are growing up, to young women, to older women, who are actually getting better jobs or trying to be financially secure, because we have some men, not saying all, who don't want to dedicate their life and have a vow to one woman or that family. Unfortunately, that's where we are in that. And I think the people need to relearn what a vow is. People need to relearn what is a relationship. Relationships don't mean you should quit because something is not working out.
Right.
And I've always seen all my life, if it's not working out, quit, get out of it, and do your own thing, which is not a good thing to see. So unfortunately, that's what we have seen. I'm gonna speak for myself. That's what I have seen. And I have seen for myself, if I want something for myself, I have to work hard, and I have to be the role model, and I have to be the family member to show my child that you can make it with just one parent.
Okay, so then let's go.
I think also for maybe my generation, and I don't want to seem like I'm being a spokesperson. All of this is my observation. I feel like that my generation, maybe the generations younger than me, make a commitment to each other that feels like marriage but is not marriage. And maybe that's why they don't get married. We already live together. We already got a baby by each other. Why we need to get married?
Excellent.
That's true.
So and I'm not condoning or approving or saying that is the way to go, but I think that the commitment and the relationship is already being made. You have 1, 2, 3, 4 children by someone. What are we doing? What are we doing that we're already not doing by just going to the courthouse or going to have a lavish wedding to sanction it? And so I think that's why it may seem like people aren't getting married, because people are already, whether it's sexually already committed to each other, whether it's by residency already committed to each other. They just have not had the actual wedding that would biblically make it a marriage or a commitment.
Matrix, what you think?
Well, I think, well, let me say this. I have a brother and his wife, and they've been married for 30 years now. So, you know, in terms, I've never been married yet, you know, so, and to watch people that's been in a relationship or a marriage longer, and I'm quite sure they done had some ups and downs, some fallouts, some rollouts, and, you know what I mean, put out and set out, but, you know, whatever struggles and things that they went through, they stuck in there, you know what I mean, even, you know, with things that was going on in the relationship, but they didn't quit on each other. You know what I mean? And so I look at that because, again, like I said, I haven't been married, but I look at that and say, well, hey, you know, if they can, you know, if I can see this is doing, they can do that, then when I do decide to get married, you know what I mean, I know times are different than it is now, but, you know, the whole point of it all is just, you know, standing in there and being committed and making your marriage choice, you know.
I think that one of the sad part, one of the disparities I see is looking back.
Yeah.
When you look at your mother and you see, was she married? Was she happy? You look at your grandmother and you look at her marriage. Was she? You use them as examples. Would this inspire me to stay with a man that I don't love? Would this inspire me to stay for the sake of the children or for the sake of anything other than me? And I think that we are now in a very selfish time where as no one is willing to give up anything for anyone. Even if you say you do, your actions, even if you stay, your actions
like
doesn't show.
Yeah.
You know, so for me, I am a believer in love. I am a believer in marriage. I'm a believer in commitment and relationship. I'm a believer in the principles of the Bible. But I am a person that understands that when life brings you certain situations, the Bible says with every temptation, he will give you a way of escape. And what I mean by that is that certain things we walk into knowing. We marry premature. That's what I'm saying. Right. We marry for the sake of the kids. We marry for whatever reason.
Right. I wanted to just mention one thing, and that is this business about what you were saying earlier, Minister Bree, about the young people these days. They commit informally to live together and to raise children together. No, but I think what is lacking is a true understanding of what a covenantal relationship means. Because a covenant means that not only are you willing to say this, but you're willing to go and formally make that declaration. When they don't want to enter into covenantal relationships also, if something happens to one of those two people, say one of them dies, if they've never really had a formal covenant together, it makes it much harder for them to enjoy the kinds of benefits that accrue to them as having entered formally into a marriage contract. So I think they misread what the value is of a covenantal relationship. And also that is a protection for those children. In terms of what they're able to receive because their parents were wise enough to enter into covenant.
So we talked about church, we talked about marriage. Tell me what the difference between generations is when it comes to dealing with career, the workplace, the difference in how we think about work, the jobs we get, the jobs we want, whether or not we want to go to work. Let's talk about it. Who wants to start?
Well, in this day and lifetime now, but for the baby boomers for me.
Yeah.
I have no choice but to go to work. You know, I have no choice. I have bills I have to get paid. You know, maybe we got to eat. I have no choice. It's whether I want to or not. You know what I mean? And then the jobs that, you know, it's like I have one job, you know, that's been put time in, you know, on the job, 16 years. You know, and then you think that like all the time that you have put in, that it will sustain you, and it just slip right under the rug from you. So now it's like you have to restart all over. You know what I mean? But, you know, with that is that I know I have to work, you know, for, you know, the things that I, you know, need to be done.
Okay, so that's the baby boomer generation, millennials, or Generation X.
Well, I'm gonna say this. I think now it's not about working for us. I think it's more about having a career. I think a lot of people, I was talking to Brianna the other day, and I was like, you know, I've been at work for 12 hours, even though I only get paid for 8 of those hours. And when you are passionate and dedicated to something, you kind of like lose focus on, this is for me, I lose focus on, am I getting paid for it? You know, am I doing this? That's just who I am, because I'm looking at climbing the ladder. I'm not looking at staying where I am. So I'm like, okay, you know, I'm giving all this time. I'm making, you know, showing people that I'm dedicated to the source or whatever. Now, some people, you know, may not be as dedicated as I am. They probably say, you know what, I don't need this job. I can go ahead out and get another job, you know. But I am all about investing. You know, I want to invest in something. So I'm going to speak on our behalf. I think, you know, because of our age group, we are more focused on trying to climb a ladder and trying to have a career in what we're going to do. And we can't be, you know, today I feel like working, tomorrow I don't, you know, and it don't matter, I'll go ahead and get another job. So
be like, the way this roof is set up over my head, it's got to be paid for. Come on, Millennial Brianna.
I think that my generation or younger, I think they want to work, they want money. But I've said this before, and I'll keep saying it, is that our generation utilizes their options. I feel like my mother's generation, my mother worked for Baltimore City Public School System for 38 years. And the position she got when she started, I mean, she climbed, you know, she climbed the ladder, but she was comfortable. She stayed there. This is my career. I'm riding this out. I'm getting my pension. I'm retiring. My generation could work for one organization, work for another organization, find out we're gifted in an area. Now we want to be an entrepreneur. In addition to being that entrepreneur, we also going to work on the side here. So I think the hustle is different. And I think that the options are different. And I think that it's not that we don't want money, but we don't feel like we're going to just give a company all of our time when I have so many other options. They don't want to answer to somebody else. They want to answer to themselves. And so they utilize those different options to get their money. So I think the hustle is different, and I think the options are different.
Okay, good. That's true. Now tell me, when it comes to financial planning, like your 401k, your pensions, and you know, your retirement in general. Tell me how the generations differ in that. Pastor Poole, let's start with you.
Well, when I first started working, and my husband as well, we were blessed because we had people who came as financial advisors. As a matter of fact, our employers encouraged that, for us to talk to people who would help us in planning for the future, rather than just spending everything. Well, so we had planners who taught us and helped us to learn how to put aside money so that when we wanted to purchase a house, we'd have what we needed to do that. And when it was time to send our children off to college, we'd have what we need because we planned. And of course, when it was retirement time, we'd have enough so that we wouldn't have to worry about running out of money before we ran out of years. You know?
Okay.
Well, I'll say this: most employers for the newer generation, they don't offer pensions. So that alone is really not on the generation. That's alone on how times are changing. Most jobs are not offering pensions. They're offering, like you said, 403B, where they make the responsibility of the retirement your responsibility. And so, with that being said, whether you do it with a 401k or a 403B or your individual retirement account, it's now your responsibility to now invest in your future. And it's only for discipline. full 3Bs and stuff like that is because you can't put $200 in an account and let it grow and not touch it. You're just giving the authority to someone else to save up on your money. So, but now, like I was saying, most employers, they're not offering it. And so saving has now become on a generation. Is the generation doing it? That's a good question. Is the generation thinking about 60 years old, what I'm going to live off of? Probably not.
Yeah.
The generation think off of what house, what car I can drive now? Probably so.
I agree with you.
I would say that.
Yeah.
I think I've just started thinking about retirement, being honest.
Wow.
I was not taught at 20, 25 to save up for your retirement, to get a job, find a good job and save up. I wasn't taught at 30. You know, I heard about it, but I didn't know the importance of what it was. So now I'm trying to like catch up. Take this $300 out, take this $500 out so that it can grow. And unfortunately, knowledge is power. So if you don't have the knowledge and if you are not taught on how the importance of retirement, how important pensions are, you know, we're all messed up. So now at this age, in my middle 40s, I'm trying to play catch up on something that I wish that I thought about back when I was 30-something years old. But unfortunately, you know, we are, you know, it's kind of silly, you know, about, you know, dealing with our money, because honestly, you know, I'm all about, let me go to this car lot and buy this new car.
Right.
I don't mind living in this fancy apartment for a minute. You know what I mean? As long as I look fly and as long as I got a fancy car, I'm straight. But you never think about, okay, in 5 years, I'm going to be 50 years old. 10 years from now, I'm going to be 60 years old. I can't work for the rest of my life. So what am I going to do as far as dealing with my money?
Okay.
You know, we don't think about that until now.
So you mentioned that you weren't taught by
Right.
your baby boomer mother, right? So I'm gonna ask Pastor Poole this before I go to the next question. So, but in your generation though, did you guys understand as much as we do now about the 401ks and the pensions? And I mean, was it?
Well, when I should indicate that
Yeah.
mine was more than just a pension.
Okay.
Because I did have, they were encouraging us to take out individual retirement
Okay.
accounts
Okay.
in order, because they had said that you have to really plan so that you would have some leverage, so that when you did finally stop, between your pension, your IRA, and your Social Security, you'd have enough to help to meet your needs. So that was given to us because we talked to financial planners who helped us out. We didn't know.
Right. Exactly.
We trusted their advice and we did as they suggested, and it helped tremendously.
Yeah. So there is a responsibility for each generation to teach the other generation. So tell me, how do we go about that? How does each generation teach the other generation and be received? Because it's a different way of, you know what I mean? It's a different way of thinking. It's a different era. You know, the way you think about things, I don't think like that. You know, so how do we teach each other between generations?
Well, I tell my nieces as well, because once I learned, I had a bank investor that taught me, you know, about the IRAs and everything. Because one time my roof had caved in. Well, it had a leak. It didn't cave. It had a leak. And you know, one of the banker was saying, he said, "Well, you have this IRA that you've had so long that you could, you know, can pull from that." And you know, so they taught me how to. So, and I always share with my nieces, and whether you do it or you don't, but you know, it works.
Right.
You know, so even you should don't have them to do savings accounts. You know what I mean? Open up a savings account. You know, for every chicken box that you done ate, you can put that $10. Chicken box is $10 now.
Right.
You can take that $10 and you invest that $10, and when you look back, you realize how much that you accumulated.
Right.
You know what I mean? Even with you know, someone that one of Foster Child, she did do it. She opened up a bank account and everything, but like she said, I thought they wasn't listening, but she was listening. She was able to buy a car.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it all depends on if they receive it from you. Because some of them, you don't tell me what to do with my money. This is my money.
Right.
You know what I mean? This is the generation and this is the world we live in. This is my money. I make this money.
Yeah.
You do, you know, in the long haul, you can say, well, I should have, could have, would have.
Right.
You know, so.
Yeah. I mean, those things are important, your IRAs, your 401ks, and all those things, because you gotta, that takes you from one generation to the next generation. But even with that, when I asked the question of you know, how we can teach one another. Okay, so what about with marriage? How do you teach the millennial, like, you can't, living together is, we don't do, you know what I mean, in Christ, we don't live together first. We get married first, you know, but how do you relate that to a person that says, but everybody else is around me doing it?
Well, whether they're married or unmarried, if they're young people, the first thing, and I say that to my grandchildren when I talk to them, you got any money in the bank? You've been saving? You've been putting some money? You're working? You've been, because the first time they tell me that they have a job, I'm going, praise the Lord, hallelujah. And the next thing I say is, all right, now do you have a plan to put some money aside? Because you know the things happen. And when those unexpected things happen, don't look at Grammy and Big Daddy and think that we're your bank, because we're not. You got to put your own resources away so that you'll have something when that's your sunny day fun. But I ask them first and foremost, do you have money in the bank? And the other thing I ask them is, do you have some life insurance?
Right, good.
Ooh.
Good, because they don't think that.
Nope.
They don't think that, because they think mama, because that's how I do it. Because my mother started it off. But once she started it off, and guess what? Once we hit 18, she passed it to us.
That's right.
Now you pick up the responsibility and take on, you know, so you're absolutely right.
I was just thinking when she was talking about the millennials, or tell me, you know, that mentality that says I can go back home if things fall apart.
I'm gonna tell you, that's how they think. I have a 28-year-old son, okay, and I have, my son does not think about life insurance, but I put a life insurance for my son because he, after the age of 21, you know, they come off yours. Yeah, so I created one for him, but they don't think about life insurance. They don't think about saving money. They want to spend money. They think about, okay, if I get this apartment, it's no big deal. I can go ahead and move back in with my mother. I don't know about nobody. When I turned 16, I was like, 18, I was like, I want to get out of my mother's house. But now I think this younger generation is like, you know, hey, you know, if I fall or if I fail, I always have somewhere to go back, which is a good thing because, you know, we all, you know, we're parents who want to make sure that, but once we put you out in the nest, we want you to stay out. We don't want you to come.
You can fly, bird.
Back then, you know, fly. But I don't think, and Brianna's over there like turning red.
I'm listening.
I don't think that savings is not as important to them as it is to us, because I'm always thinking about a rainy day.
Yeah, Evangelist,
always
thinking about it. I feel like you got something burning to say about this. It gives me something.
I promise you, I don't.
You don't have that to say about.
No, they spend money. I mean, this is the thing with them. I feel they just make more money than their parents. So how could you tell me something when I already make more money than you? That's how they think, because they make more money than us. They say
that's true.
That's true.
But their parents made less money, but they did in terms of how they managed
and
it.
you can manage your money.
See, but this is the thing, and I'm not about to play the blame game, but I just feel like a lot of times there's a lot of concerns about the generation that's under, but then where was the teaching of the generation? Okay, I make more money than you, but did you ever teach me how to save? No, you didn't. You didn't.
That's not necessarily true, because you could come back to me. I can't go to you.
But even in
no.
Even in the
you can come back.
Whether I can come or go, did you teach me so that I don't come back?
No, I could have taught, because my example is your teaching. Sometimes everything ain't verbal. My actions have shown.
But in some cases,
ignorant.
But in some cases, that's not true, because my mother, and I know she's not going to mind me saying this. She actually told me one day, I didn't teach you finances. Because when I wanted something, I got it. I didn't have to sacrifice. I didn't know what it was like not to have. My mother could be struggling. If the lights was out, I never knew. We was going out. So if the lights was off, I never knew. If my mother couldn't afford it, I never knew. When I was going to private school, my mother couldn't afford a tuition, I was still going. So I didn't know sacrifice. So when I want to spend, I spend. When I want something, I acquire it, because it was never taught for me to say, you need to put that away. Even though you can afford it, you don't need to buy it. That wasn't taught. Even in my young age, in my adult age, my mother said, this is her slogan, you ain't got chick nor child. You better enjoy your youth, because when you get married and you get a child, you're not going to be able to have that freedom. That was taught. Now at 32, I wish I didn't buy as many watches and Louis bags, because now I want more. So sometimes, maybe my household, that's not the case, where you say it was taught by the example. Sometimes it's not taught by the example. Or sometimes your protection is not helping. So yes, you protected me, you raised me. Every time I screw up, you're gonna pay my cell phone bill. Now I'm 32, and not my case, because I'm paying my bills. But I'm saying, in a sense, now you don't want to do it anymore. But you've always trained the child to come back. When they need,
that wasn't my experience.
I'm just saying, it's an experience, and maybe it's experiences.
Yeah,
maybe it's the age of the person that raised you. Maybe it's your culture, your environment, but I don't think that it's fair to say that all generations are the way they were because they didn't follow an example. I think in some cases the example was not given, or the example was not shown.
And I'm gonna say this because when I had my child, there were things that I wanted my mother to give me that she didn't give me, and I told myself when I have a child, my child will never want for anything. So because of that, my son never wanted for anything. If he wanted this, if he wanted that, at age 11, he wanted a cell phone. He got a cell phone. My son, right now, my son is living the way he's living because of me. My son got 2,500 pairs of shoes because of me. My son don't come out the house with the same outfit on because of me. So it is my fault. No, I was not raised to, okay, Trevon, you need to make sure that you save, put $100 of that aside. No, I was like, let's go to the mall. And if you look at my son today, you would say, okay, that is Elder Chantal's child. No, seriously, because that's what I taught him. I taught him the wrong thing instead of teaching him the right thing.
Brings a different mindset. When you struggle, you have a different perception.
Yeah.
When you got everything and it was just handed to you, you don't think like that.
No. Wait a minute.
I'm not saying you per se, but I'm just saying you ask a person that had to struggle. They don't have the same perception about spending because they don't know what tomorrow brings.
Well, when you home living with your mama and you don't got no bills,
that's what I'm saying.
That ain't no struggle. If you working at
No, but I'm
McDonald's
talking
every
about
day,
from
you
a
get
parenting
checkers.
perspective of struggle.
Good. So, okay. So again, then how are we supposed to bridge that gap right there? You see what I'm saying?
Question.
How you want to bridge that? Because that's a real issue, and that's a real issue not only here but out in our street. And a lot of people are going through that. So how?
It can start, number one, even if they're not. I have lots of nieces. I have grandchildren. So whatever I may not have conveyed to my children, because I understand and I've seen how that works for them. It worked well for some of them, and for others of them they didn't, because they're different. But the bottom line is, whatever I've learned in terms of that, I can pass on that instruction and advice to my nieces, to my grandchildren, and to the other younger people in the family, if they're listening.
Right.
Now,
That's the key.
it's advice,
It's up to them.
but all of this is advice. It's up to them to take it.
Communication.
I think that's good. I think for me, transparency.
Yeah.
For instance, it wasn't that my mother never struggled. It's that I never saw the struggle.
Right.
Yeah, right.
But being a child was
right. So
I'm just saying being a child.
So no, my mother shouldn't say the lights is out because
Brianna,
Daddy
what you
didn't
got
pay
on
the
it?
bill.
Nothing.
No, Brianna, do you got $25 to contribute to the bill? No, but Brianna, you can't just get it because you want it. Brianna, no. We're going to save this money because you want to go to the high school of your choice and we got to pay for it. So it's not necessarily tell me that Daddy lost his job and that's why we're struggling. That's not necessary to say I mismanaged money and that's why the lights is out. But there has to be some type of transparency on my level of why you can't always get when you want to get it because you asked. You can't lose $50 when you go to the movies and then come home and your daddy give you another $50. No, you got to learn the value. You've lost it, you're not going. That wasn't the thing for me. That transparency wasn't there. I lost $50 going to the movies. My father gave me another $50. Did it hurt the house? Probably, but it was never transparent because they never wanted me to live how they live.
Yeah.
So there was
That's
still a struggle.
Yeah.
The struggle was just, it wasn't exposed, but it could have been exposed on my level, not, like I said, not being specific, but in a level to say, we got to save, baby. We can't just waste money. We can't just lose money and think we're going to get it back. That's not how the world works, but that wasn't taught to me.
So the bottom line to this is that we must communicate from one generation to the next generation and be able to, because what I'm hearing is I wasn't taught, I didn't know, I wasn't taught, I did. So, and I think that's what we can take from this, as we are raising our children, as we are, getting older, and we see, something out of order, we can say, look, don't do it this way. Let me show you a different way. Let me show you, better. And I think that's where we can definitely bridge this gap between generation to generation to generation. This has been a great conversation, ladies.
Yes, it has.
We could go on and on, but unfortunately, we are out of time. Listen, we want you to make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel at Victory Ministries. Make sure you do so that you can get the alerts, sign up and hit that little bell so you can get the notification so you'll know each and every time we go live. Make sure you tune in next week as we'll have another show as Let's Talk with Victory will be airing their live show as well. This has been a great show. I love talking with you women. Each and every week. We pray that you have learned a whole lot about generation to generation to generation. We know you have your views and your comments, and we welcome them. So go to our Facebook page and give us your comments. We love you, and we're going to see you next time for more conversations. Until then, you have a blessed and a victorious day. Bye-bye.